Hi, I'm Elisabeth Dawson, and you're listening to our show, Ways to Love Your Money. Again, inspired by our book, Wealth by Design. If you don't have a copy, give us a call and we'll get one for you. I want to talk about today a little bit of something that most people kind of cringe, at the topic of, but that's a budget and living within a budget. No one likes to be told that they have to live within a budget. We're kind of this innovative age today where, we have our bank accounts on our phone and we can look at it at a moment's notice. And if we see we have money there, we feel like we can spend it. But we're not really living within a budget these days. And so what we try to do is approach this subject to make it a little bit more easy, a little bit more fun. And what's your cash flow analysis look like? And a cash flow analysis is something where, looking at all of your expenses, because you might say that you only spend so much on groceries or you spend only so much on gas, but when you actually look over 2 or 3 months of bank statements and you can truly see what you're spending on each of those items and then break it down to entertainment, then break it down to personal expenses, or what about just going out to dinner? I think that's one of the biggest things that I see on most people's cash flow analysis, because we want to see what people are spending. So if we can become more mindful of the dollars that we're spending and give ourselves a limit, okay, just a limit, that limit's a little bit different, because I'll talk to pretty much nine times out of 10 with people, and what they're doing is they're charging everything on their credit card each month. Maybe to get travel miles or to get points or cash back. But their promise is that they pay off that credit card each month. Well, the problem with that philosophy, not that it's not a good one, I want you to pay off any debt that you might have, but the problem with that philosophy is that if you have, your credit card and you're putting all of your expenses on there, even your emergency expenses, and then as life gets more expensive, inflation gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and as you can see my hands in front of me, it's kind of like opening up an alligator's mouth. Well, what happens when you put your, hand or head in an alligator? Well, it's gonna chomp down, right? And it's because we're not keeping a limit as to what we're using on our credit card. So last year you might have been putting $500 on it, but this year it might be $1,000. And each month you might be paying it off. But what ends up happening is the real true concept of budgeting is to say, I'm only willing to actually put this much on the credit card, or I don't want to have a relationship with a credit card whatsoever. And then you limit your expenses to exactly what you're spending. And if you can do that, and you can actually give yourself basically a dollar amount that you're going to spend for groceries, or a dollar amount that you're going to spend for going out to dinner, or a dollar amount that, is fixed and that's your car payment or your car insurance, or your mortgage. Those are things that are fixed. You have to pay those things, but it's the lifestyle that gets into the way. And that's really where we start to lose dollar cents and bigger dollars and bigger cents. So there's a bunch of different budgeting applications out there today that are either free of cost or you can pay for some. One of my favorite budgeting applications is this, and it links right to your bank account, and it's called Mint, so mint.com. You can go in there, and some people don't like their bank accounts attached to it, but if you really want true knowledge and true, ideas of what you're spending, get them in those categories. You don't have to be so fancy like a business and get QuickBooks, okay? Because most people that are doing their QuickBooks accounts for their business aren't the ones doing it. Someone else is doing it for them. So your relationship with your money is maybe a little bit more tender and true when you're kind of seeing, okay, if I go into Mint and I say, okay, mint.com, I'm gonna associate my bank account with it. If you use credit cards, you associate your credit cards with it. And then you have all the different categories, and you say, I'm only going to spend $200 on gas this month, or I'm going to spend $400 on groceries. Well, it will ding you. It won't tell you you can't spend the money, but it'll ding you when you've gone over or you get close. And there might be a budget that you put for, caring for your pet. If you don't have a real relationship or knowledge of what you're spending for your pet, you need to know it. I've had a gal that I've been coaching for probably the last 2 years, and she was spending for her pet because she doesn't think she's going to have kids, and this is going to be her baby, right? But she was spending more on her pet, her dog, than she was spending on herself and her mortgage. So we can get a little extreme with a lot of different things, but the things that we love, we want to take care of. Just the same with our kids. I have a couple that I'll be meeting with later on this week, and they have great incomes. They net out in cash each month about $11,000 a month. And a lot of people out there think, gosh, if I was netting out after taxes and expenses and things of this nature, and I'm netting out $11,000 a month, it should be enough to live my life. Well, they have been absorbed by credit. They've been absorbed by life and lifestyle, and they've been taking care of their kids. And they want to get more serious about money now. They want to have a stronger relationship and respect for money. So how do we do all this? There's an interesting newer app that's out there, and I think it's actually pretty smart, pretty brilliant. And it's called Acorns. And have I personally used it myself? No, that's my disclaimer to you. I haven't used it myself. But what I think is fascinating about this app is that it is linked to your account, your purchases and everything else, but it kind of rounds up. I don't know if any of you have been around like a Rite Aid or a CVS, but they used to have something that you round up the change to give to charity. Well, this company, Acorns, has used that same type of technology and knowledge and actually said, well, why don't we use your change and invest it? And is this smart? Well, I think it is. It goes back to when we were kids and we saved all of our parents' change and our own change. And maybe you still do this today, but at the end of that little, bucket of gold, right? You have so much money that you've saved, right? And I think that this is interesting because I remember as a child that I would get out. And if you haven't done this for a long time, I would encourage you to do it because it's pretty, it's pretty connecting to money because, if you have to put 50 cents or $1 in or $5 of coins in those little wrappers like we used to do, it took a lot of time. Well, I don't even think banks give away those wrappers anymore. You can go to something called Coinstar and you put your change there. Well, I think this app Acorns really takes it back to that place of saying, save your change, but we'll do it for you and we'll start to invest it. If you're not investing right now, it's a great way to start. So, I want you to stay encouraged to listen to the rest of this show because we're going to be having our special agent, if you will, our real estate agent, our guru, Jonathan Olow on the show. And we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the travel and budgeting for travel because so many people are just so focused on what they spend, but they might put it on credit for travel. Let's rewind. Let's just start pre-planning and let's start saving and then pay for it instead of just waiting until the day of and then, our travel expenses are exposed and we didn't budget for what we would spend. So we're going to be talking to Jonathan about that and there's some really helpful tips on there that I'm going to be taking myself as well. So stay tuned. We can't wait for you to hear the next segment and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Olow with the Olow Real Estate Group. And if you are aware or not aware, the interest rates for purchasing a home have been going down incredibly. So if you have any interest in owning a home or have a friend or family member that is interested in purchasing a home, please contact me at 619-823-9900. I'll make sure that we have a complimentary consultation to make sure that you're in the best position and also to introduce you to a trusted lender so we can get you ready to purchase your next home.
Well, we've been talking about budgeting today, and we've been talking about strategies about how to save money so that you're actually prepared. But now we're going to be talking with our real estate professional, our expert, and we're going to talk about a topic that I think comes up especially at this time of year, the summer, and that's about budgeting for travel. Oh my goodness, this is a huge topic. So Jonathan, thanks so much for being part of the show today.
You're welcome.
We know that you have a big impact on this and there's a lot of different things that we can talk about for travel, but what's really on your mind today that you think would be a big impact about how we even save or how we spend the right way for travel and what we do?
Well, I just thought of this, that, traveling is not the same as buying a house, but when somebody has that idea of, I want to buy a house, that there are many components that go into it, that from how much the insurance is going to be, what kind of maintenance you have on your house. Am I buying a house? Am I buying a condo? So putting all of those things out there to kind of put a plan together, then of course at the end, you can dream here, you can have champagne taste or beer budget and figure out where it's going to be. So when, same way maybe with traveling is that okay, you have a budget, but where are you
Right.
going to go from there, and what are the components that can, go into that travel
Sure,
factor?
sure.
So,
And I think today too, what's such a concern for people is, where am I going to come up with the money? What most people today, I'd say, the majority of Americans today, they'll buy it on credit. They'll buy it on a credit card. And that's not necessarily the right way to travel or the right way to have that experience that you want in your life. So how do we start budgeting for those things? Just like budgeting for a home purchase, but how do we budget for the dream vacations that we want? Because we're spending more time and money on planning for a vacation and that experience for a moment in time, and we're not even planning to have any kind of money in savings, or we're not planning to have any kind of money in retirement, and certain things take a back seat.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
well, I think that, people want advice, and part of that advice might be asking their friends or family, where did you go? What part of the country did you go in? Did you go on a planned vacation? Some of the things is, somebody may say, well, I want, a multi-layered vacation.
Sure.
Where some people will say, I'm going to take the all-inclusive because I don't have to worry about, am I getting wine, water, beer, sodas?
Food.
Am I getting top shelf?
Sure. Sure.
On all that. So I think people will look at that and they'll pay for what they want. And I think when they can compare, but when you do that all-inclusive and say, hey, I'm just going to take it,
Right.
then now you have to figure out those other things. So if you're going to figure out, where you want to go, there's going to be plane travel involved. So you're going to research, or you're going to hire a professional that's going to look at all those options.
Right.
Sure, you can go on cheapair.com
Yeah.
and get a $150 flight, but you have 16 connections and it takes you 4 days to get there.
Exactly.
So you have to look at what's important to
Right.
you. Is it getting there on time, or just getting
Well,
there
and I
and then
think-
turning around and coming back?
I think that's a great thing to bring up, because so many people will budget shop, right? And of course we like to budget shop. Everybody likes a discount, right? We all like a deal. But it reminds me so much of my son just recently, about a month ago. He did a ticket just like that, and it took him literally almost 24 hours just to go to and from Boston, where his best friend was that he wanted to visit at his school. And but he did it on his own. He had to figure it out, and it's like, oh gosh, I wouldn't have done that again. I wouldn't have done that again. So I think it's important to kind of there's a professional for everything. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
So even when it comes to travel, there's a professional.
Yeah, and if you pay a professional to do that, is the outcome going to be any
Right.
different? It may or may not, but if you enjoy spending 25 hours planning for it, is it taking away from your job? Are you doing this on the job? Are you doing it at home at
Right.
night until midnight, and maybe have a
Right.
couple extra glasses of wine?
Yeah.
And then there you go, you got a $5,000 flight.
Right.
I mean, I joke about that, but
It's not really far from a joke.
No, it's not.
There's a lot of reality.
But
to
a lot
that.
of people forget. I mean, they usually think about getting there and the destination,
Sure.
but there's the hotel or where you're staying, there's the food,
Yes.
there's the entertainment, there's the museums, there's all the activities
Right.
that you're going to do. And typically for me, when I travel, I'll pick one or two for sure items, and then the rest, it happens as it happens, because you have locals that you can go talk to there. You can actually go online and say, friends of San Felipe, or friends of Venice, Italy, and you become friends on Facebook and start asking questions.
That leads me to another statement too, because just like we want to plan for travel, we want to do it the right way. There are now budgeting apps for travel. And I know you've traveled the world, I've traveled the world, we've done these things, but the difference is I think we kind of create a plan for that before we actually go, instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to just put on my credit card and pay it off for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So have you ever used any of those travel budget apps
I
that are out there today?
I have not. But usually what I do is, and one of the things that is important for people, well, not say to make friends with people across the world, is that there's Airbnb and there's VRBO and
Yes.
VRBO and all the other sites that they have.
Sure.
Those are great. Yet if you have gone to those locations and made friends, then those are the people that may be open to letting you stay there for 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
So you kind of do an informal exchange, and you you get the environment of the city rather than, being, I don't like to be in a hotel. So
Okay.
I like to be
Yeah.
in, like, walk out and you're in Chelsea in New York and poof, you're
Yes.
like one of the people.
Right.
You're not
Well, I think that's great.
tourists.
So you say friends of, let's say, New York,
Yeah.
or friends of a specific region. Tell me a little bit about what that is. You just kind of put it into Google and it kind of pops up and populates
Well,
different things?
let's say, there's a friend of mine has a place in San Felipe down in
Okay.
Mexico. So she told me to go onto a site
Okay.
that said, I think it was Friends of San Felipe,
Okay.
San Felipe, and there's actually a chatter, a
Okay.
group that's on
Okay.
there, and people ask questions. They talk about what restaurants. Somebody may mention, oh, is there crime rate or whatever is
Sure.
happening here? So
Sure.
it just gives you a chance to mingle with the locals without even being there.
Right.
So I signed on to that site a couple of weeks ago because I'm
Planning
going
on
there
going?
to look at some property and just take a couple
Sure.
days off.
Sure.
But it gave me a good insight of what's there, because like, it's important that you find out, and I can't remember what it was, whether it was on a TV station or it was on the news, about the countries to travel to, because people think that, oh, I'm just going to go to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Well, you need to know what countries are safe as
Sure,
well.
sure.
There's green, yellow, and orange.
Yes.
It's like at the airport. What day are we, on that
Right.
airport thing? So, it's another important factor to look at. And factoring that in is also insurance. Because some people are like, I'm not going to pay $27.
Right.
And you've got $5,000 on the line,
Yeah.
and your company says, no, you can't go on vacation because we have a rollout of a
Yes, so
program.
travel insurance,
and that
yeah.
$27
Yeah.
or $100 is something
Yeah.
that you should really look into.
Yes. I had that experience a few years ago with my son not going on a trip to Europe and never used the ticket,
Yeah.
which is so unfortunate. I want to rewind a little bit, and I want to rewind and go back and say, okay, well, when I start to research what I want to do, maybe even before that, because that's kind of putting the cart in front of the horse, from a respective money standpoint. And that's really what this show is all about, respective money, ways to love your money. We want to enjoy life. I never want to tell anybody that they can't enjoy a vacation or a trip or something that they've dreamed to have, right? But what I want people to hear today is to pre-plan for the expense of that vacation. If you know you want to take a vacation once a year and it's going to be significant, or twice a year and it's going to be significant, I want people to be mindful that they start to budget out what that is going to cost. So you made kind of a little joke about going to Afghanistan. Well, what if it is something like that? What if it is to the Middle East? What if it's to Israel? What if it's to, the Yosemite, whatever it might be? Because yes, the flight getting you there, that's a big enough expense as it is, but then the hotel or the living arrangements, talk about real estate, it's all about that experience of where you're staying, and then what kind of an experience do you want to have after? So if that trip is going to cost you $5,000, well, instead of doing it after the fact, what if we're saving, that $400, $450, $500 per month, so we can definitely pay for that trip when it comes, or along the way, and budget for that. And I think that that's what I really want people to hear and be mindful of, because I want everyone to have the amazing experience of their lives. But again, we spend more time traveling, and the money that we spend on traveling and planning for that, than we do for our retirement, for our emergency fund, for savings in the bank, and we need a balance.
Yeah. And like you said, the emergency incidentals, you don't know when it's going to happen. And same way with owning a home,
Right.
Good practice is to have 6 months of reserves. So when you are planning, you're not planning $5,000 in $1. You're
Right.
planning $5,000 in, $950,
Sure.
whatever it's going to be. So either you're going to save that money, yet the other way to do it is to say, okay, if we're 6 months away, you have to divide the months into how much
Sure.
money and how it's going to work. So what are you going to give up?
Right.
But also, what are you going to do? You may have a talent for dog walking. You may have babysitting, but they talk about why not take not a second job, but just maybe a hobby that pays you,
Sure.
some extra money. So if you've
Sure.
got some skills or crafts or something that you're going to do, well then, put in the time, a couple hours a night, rather than
Right.
saying,
Right.
okay, now I've got to cut out this. Well, maybe you're going to do something.
Yeah.
It's just another way to say, okay, who knows? You may find a whole new career by working in some other, fashion to get you on vacation.
And the interesting thing is, as a financial coach, You know, we coach people into being able to find money for the things that they want to do or accomplish or to save or be responsible or have a much different relationship with money than they already have. And most people that we talk to, they all have a plan, but it's usually not a structured plan. And in their mind, they think they have a plan, but it's really when you get down and kind of peel the layers back of the onion, there's really no plan.
Yeah.
And you and I have known people that have really, brought up their credit card bills to a point where it wasn't manageable. They might go down a situation where they never really wanted to go down that path, but now how do they get out? Yeah. And that's really about, buying life on credit. Yeah. I know that sometimes we need to use credit cards, but I'm not a big fan of them, all right? And I'm sure credit card companies, when they hear this show, they don't really like that. Yeah. But just to think that we're going to use a credit card to get points for miles, or we're going to get dollars back for purchases. What is the cost of doing business with that? But to even kind of go to a different direction and not to fly around this topic, I have a cousin that I know, and I know she learned this from her father, but she has so much cash that they save, and that's all they're going to be allowing themselves to spend on that vacation. And it's an old method. It's kind of like the bill paying system where they had envelopes and they put money in for certain bills each and every month. Well, they basically kind of coined it now to vacation. And they know that they're not going to use any other monies other than this cash that they have. Now, there's been pros and cons of having cash when you travel. What do you feel about that?
There has to be a certain amount. I mean, again, you have to check to see, are there, if you're going to travel overseas, are there fees to pull out from your bank?
Sure.
And I know that you had a show, earlier with somebody talking about credit cards.
Right.
And check with your bank before, because there may be no transfer fees or there may be no exchange fees.
Right.
So look into that ahead of time, because when I travel, there's sometimes I'll bring $300 or $500. Just depends on where it's going to be. I don't stick it all in the same place. I mean, you need to move, and you have to remember where that is.
So where do you put it? Where do you put it? That's a good point.
Where do I put it? Different little pockets.
Different pockets.
And then when you come home from vacation and you forgot about that pocket, and you're like, oh, look at that. Let's go shopping. No, I don't do that.
No, but I think it's smart. And I think, the segment that you're talking about the credit cards and possibly having just a credit card that has, if you're going overseas, if you're going to Europe or you're going to another country, to make sure that maybe has a certain amount of availability on it, right? And that there's no foreign transaction fees. But that is also something where when you get back, that it is to pay that whole thing off.
Yeah, and remember he talked about not using your bank card, because if you've got $20,000 in your bank and somebody gets your PIN number, that $20,000 comes back. You don't get it back.
Right.
But with a credit card, if somebody took that and there was fraud, then you can put in a claim and get that $5,000 or $3,000, because it happens all the time in any of the airports, because there's people that are walking around, they're swiping that little machine, or you're at a little cafe place. I was in Germany, I just got a coffee.
Right.
Boom. There was, $150 out of my account. I go, where the heck did that happen? I knew I was careful and I was, covering over the pad, but, in those little pop-up shops, they don't send out the request to be paid until the end of the day. So who knows who's going behind the counter and taking that little machine, and they've got 150 people's number on that machine, and they,
Yeah. Well, I think those
if
are
you
all
don't want to
things-
travel, then let that scare you away.
I know.
But carrying cash, I think is fine. But again, then you have to trade it into peso or whatever denomination that you're going to do.
Sure. So. Yeah, I think there's pros and cons, and what works for one person might not work for another. But I do think that the main piece here is plan, save, pay. Yeah.
Well,
and be protected.
Yeah, and I think that for the general people, it's like, okay, if you don't have control and the card's going to come out, but in my opinion, I think a credit card is fine, because I pay my credit card every month. So nobody's getting any interest, but as a convenience to say, do I have control of buying that $5 thing or that $5,000 thing? I personally think it's an easier
Well, that's where I think
thing,
you're very different than most, because you are disciplined to do that. my biggest concern is when it comes to credit cards, we don't usually put a governor. So each and every month, our lifestyle gets bigger and bigger and bigger on a credit card. So, if we can shorten that down, and if it's very specific that we have a card that's for, travel specifically, and then it just gets paid, you already know what your budget is, and you already have the money over here in your bank account, your purpose bank account, which is your vacation bank account. And we'll talk on other episodes too about how much to have for an emergency fund. You just mentioned 6 months of savings for what if, right? But then also having things for, if the tires go out and I just went on vacation, oh my gosh, how am I going to afford both? How do we manage that? So just to kind of, recollect our thoughts about this, I think planning, saving, paying, and then look in the rearview mirror. How many times am I going to do this? If it's once or twice a year, if you're privileged enough to do that, wonderful. Just don't go on a whim and a fancy. Be a planner. You're a planner. You're a disciplined planner. But not everybody else out there that is listening is. So any other things you want to do in closing?
Well, I was just going to say that, if it is that person that feels like, ooh, I'm going to be tempted, well, then go on, name brand, but go on Groupon, go on Costco, go on the sites that have pre-planned, prepaid, and it's all done. Yes, there's going to be incidentals, but that's up to you. But I think that
you can pretty much identify what you're...
Correct. And even Groupon, they have some great ones. Go on Costco. They have these incredible things. Sure, there's certain times of the year, but, you're still going to get the same experience. But you know that you've got these margins that you're going to stay in, financially.
Okay.
So...
No, I think it's all great. I think this is a lot of wisdom that we can pass on to people.
Yeah, and if you're traveling in a group, and because I've traveled to New York with some friends, and let's just say they're in a different caliber of dollars and things that they do. So when we travel with them, we say, we're going to join you for this, this, and this. We're not doing the $5,000 meal that you guys are on. We're going to go get donuts, or we're going to go get bagels and cream cheese for dinner. Because we would rather see this show or do this particular thing, or go to research all of the free museums.
Well, I think that's one of the things that's great about you too, Jonathan, because I know when you've traveled, you already have everything kind of planned out, almost like you're your own travel planner, right? A lot of people will go out there and they don't really have a true structure or an idea of what they want to do. If they know that they want to go to a Broadway play, or if they want to go, to Austin and see different music artists and things of that nature. What is it that you want to go to that destination? What do you want to do? And I think when like I have said this before, there's a professional for everything. So a professional, travel planner is going to help you get the most out of what you want to do, and possibly discounts along the way. We've used AAA and it's been great. And I've had other people in the past too that have helped. So in closing, what would you suggest to people to start thinking about and having a little bit more respect of their money, but to stretch it as far as it can go? Anything you want to say in closing?
I would just have to say, just be diligent. There's a price for everything. You're going to pay before, or you're going to pay later. And I think the pay later usually is more painful. So just and not that going on vacation should be painful, but if you're going with a partner or a group of people, well, then make a game out of it. And usually when you make a game out of it and you're saying, okay, I pulled out $5 today, and I'm ahead of the game, make a game out of it. Especially if you're planning with your kids or your family or something like that. Let's say, they do those donation things, and they have the little thermometer, going up, especially if you've got kids. And you can say, hey, we're halfway to Utah, and we're going to get to, wherever you're going to go. It might be something a little more fun where they, then you're teaching your kids as well as, financial responsibility.
I think that's what it's all about. It's not just for us at our age, it's for our kids too, and even little kids. Or even, maybe we still need to learn this now.
We do.
Well, thanks so much for giving me your perspective about this subject, because I think we're going into the summer months. It's already warm outside. It just became summer overnight, and everyone's thinking about what they want to do for their summer vacation. And again, if we don't budget properly, we're never going to be able to have the outcome that we want. We're going to have stress, and then holidays come, and then we're really having some stress.
So go spend $900 and go get the virtual glasses and sit at home and have somebody bring you a beer. There you go.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for Jonathan's perspective, and I also want to say I'm going to use some of this advice personally. I'm leaving on a trip here very shortly, and I'm going to just remind myself, check out Groupon. and then friends of the place that you're in. I think that that's a great piece of advice. But don't forget to start budgeting for these things. If you plan it, it will work out better. If you don't plan it, then you're going to have a catastrophe on your hands. But don't make the mistake that so many people do, that just put their vacations on time and then they're not financially responsible and they don't have a good relationship with their money. Be planners out there. If you can't do it yourself, find some professional help out there, just because we all need a little bit more. But go out there, have fun, get the experience, create the memories. That's what we take with us in life. So we're going to say goodbye for now. But again, thanks so much for tuning in, and it's been a joy to have you. The information provided in this show is for informational and educational purposes only. This show is not investment advice, nor is it intended to address the financial needs of any particular viewer. The opinions expressed on this show are not intended to be an endorsement of any particular investment strategy or service of any other kind. You must make an independent decision regarding investments or strategies mentioned throughout the show. Before acting on information in this show, you should consider whether it is suitable for your particular situation and strongly consider seeking advice from a financial advisor.